our presentation on immigration rights, and in particular, the DREAM Act, which is the act that explores the development, relief, and education for alien minors, which is the children of illegal immigrants. To begin our presentation, we first want to share with you why parents would even bring their children to the United States.
Media here in the U.S. doesn't always paint an accurate picture of immigrants coming to this country and why they come to this country. And we wanted to stress from the beginning, although we focused on Latino immigrants, excuse me, in our presentation, there are immigrants from all over the world that come into the U.S. I have to say from the research and the experience that I've done that for some reason the Latino immigrants seem to have a harder go at it. One example would be like we take teachers from Canada to renew their license every year is $80. We also take teachers from Mexico for them to renew their license is like $230. So there are some disparities there. But one of the reasons that parents bring their children to the U.S. is because of immigration needs. And back in the 80s, how many of you are familiar with NAFTA and what NAFTA is? NAFTA is the North American Free Trade Agreement, and it was enacted in order to promote better trade, free trade between Mexico, Canada, and the U.S. And actually what it done was allowed these huge agricultural corporate giants to go down into Mexico to take over the land and basically to run the Latinos away from their own farmland. When this happened, they were either left to try to come north to our borders, or Americans also started what they call maquiladora factories in Mexico. Low wages, harsh working conditions. That was basically what, when we ran the Latino culture off their agricultural land, that was the kind of jobs that they had to do. A lot of times they would work long hours just to try to pay the bills that would mount up every week. What that left was children being left unattended, and I don't know if you guys know a lot about Juarez, Mexico. It's one of the most dangerous cities in the U.S. The parents would be at work, and the children would be pretty much left to try to tend to themselves while the parents work. It's a situation now to where the gang members, the cartels, are going and trying to, like the kids are playing in the street, waiting on their kids to get home, and they're going up to these kids and they're luring them in to sell drugs and to do criminal activity, and the children themselves are not safe. A lot of this has to do with our American policy, and a lot of this started with the North American Free Trade Agreement.
Another reason parents might bring their children to the United States is because of social reasons. You know, their family members here may be sick. They could just be coming to be with their family. You just never know. There's many issues that will bring cause the parents want to bring their children here.
Another reason why parents may choose to migrate up to the U.S. is due to political persecution or war. And again, I'll refer to Juarez because it is the border between, one of the largest borders between Texas and Mexico. There's no law there. The politicians are corrupt, the police are corrupt. You know, you got the cartels, you got the gangs, you got the drug wars, and it's a situation that you could really go down there and just in the middle of, out in the open, shoot somebody, and nobody's gonna do anything about it. A lot of times that, you know, people will be accused of stuff that they didn't even do. The drug wars were due, like just random shootings, and say, well, then, you know, they were a member of the drug gang, or they wouldn't have gotten killed. And a lot of that stuff's not true. They're just killing innocent people in Mexico. thing that reasons given for migration is for environmental purposes like flooding, tsunamis, hurricanes, any kind of natural destruction would cause people to want to migrate.
And migration usually happens as a result of a combination of many of these factors. It may not be just one of them.
I wanted to lend a little bit of information from the trip that I went on this summer. I spent 42 days on the Texas, New Mexico, Arizona border of Mexico. And I had the opportunity to speak with people that were in hiding in El Paso. Two young ladies came to mind in particular. This is the story of Edith. She was in her mid-30s. She was a law student. She had 2 children. She lived in a modest means. Her family was, they weren't poor, but they weren't rich. They were kind of in between. She had an uncle that went, he had some workers that went missing, and so a couple of days later he leaves the home and goes to look for his workers, and he doesn't come back. A few days later, Edith told us that the cartel had sent a message, don't know if it was by phone or how it was, but sent a message that they needed $150,000 to ransom her uncle. That's a lot of money. Somehow they got together and got all they could through family members, through relatives, through friends, through neighbors, and raised $50,000 to give to the drug lords. A couple of days after that, the cartel contacted the family, and in Mexico, it's the Latina's job, it's the female's job to take care of the deceased, to make the arrangements for the deceased. And so the message was sent to Edith that come get your uncle. And she and some other family members went to get her uncle and found him and 3 of his workers all beheaded. She went to the Mexican police. They wouldn't listen to her. They said, well, if the cartel killed your uncle, then he was somehow a part of the gangs. And she vehemently denies that. She said he was a good, had a lot of religious ideals and was just a really good person, a really good moral person. And she said that's the excuse that they said. They said, you know, they'll always say, even though you had nothing to do with the gangs or the cartels, they would always blame that to kind of cover up their senseless murders. The point I want to try to make with all this is that she fled with her 2 children. She crossed over our borders undocumented. And what I want to propose to you is to think about, you know, their situation. They're living in hiding. They're not able to go out and mix and mingle among the public. In the United States, you can have your children, whether they're documented or undocumented, can go to school up through high school without papers. There's no questions asked. Once you get out of high school, it's a different story, and a little further project talks a little bit more about that. But just to consider that those 2 children that are here may eventually, you know, they'll stay here, may eventually graduate from high school here and are going to need a further education. And one thing we wanted you to think about was, should these kids be denied the right to go to college? They've been brought over here through no fault of their own. And to keep in mind that we're talking about children. And we're talking about Mexico. Mexico was our neighbor. You know, we're all fighting in Iraq, and we're demolishing our own neighbors. So just to take into consideration, you know, some of the circumstances that bring some of these people over here.
Each year, there's about 65,000 undocumented students who graduate from high school, and without the benefits that the other children, such as I, or probably most of you, were allowed to, and about 15,000 failed to graduate. Today, an estimated 11.5 to 12 million undocumented immigrants reside in the United States. Only 5 to 10% of undocumented high school students go to college. And it's not necessarily because they don't want to, it's because they simply can't afford it, or most universities and schools won't allow them to enroll in their school.
We'd like to introduce you to what has commonly been known as a group called the Dreamers. And the Dreamers are children of undocumented parents that have came into America, that have went through our schools, some of them from kindergarten on up, and then they get out of high school. Some of these, one of the students was telling me about a friend that lives in Adel that graduated with honors, graduated in the top 10, one of the top 10 people in their class, and they're working in the fields because they can't, one, get financial aid, or two, a college that will accept them because they have no identification. These kids are called the Dreamers, and they're fighting for their rights to the American dream. This poem, what happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore and then run? Does it sting like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load, or does it explode? We want to show you a video of the explosion of what we call the Dreamers in the Dream Act.
Be able to do the same things that my neighbor, the average American, can do, because I consider myself American.
I came here, I think, 88, when I was 4 years old.
I arrived to the United States when I was 9 years old because my parents brought my older brother and my younger brother and myself here.
I didn't know what was before. I was a child. I was only 10 years old. And the next thing I know, I was attending school.
Dreamers are people who were brought to the United States when they were minors. And these are people who, for the most part, have gone to American schools, who speak English. And so they've graduated from school, and they leave school, and they realize that they don't have any options open to them.
I identify myself as American because I miss my culture.
Yeah, I do consider myself American. My family came here because I was 9. I thank this country. I think this country saved my life.
They are Americans in every way except the part that really, really counts, and that's the papers.
To say that we're going to deny educational opportunity to children who are brought by their parents, no decision of their own, is wrong. It's morally wrong.
That's what we want. I mean, that's the foremost from this, is just have a chance to pursue our dreams and get education and be able to secure a future that we haven't been able to secure because of things that were not in our control.
Should we not educate people who grow up in our nation, or educate in our schools who share our values and share our vision for a better and stronger America?
We are normal people who want a sort of a normal life.
It is not only their dream we deny, it is America's too. Our next great scientist, doctor, academic, or artist may never have a chance to serve their country.
Already talked about it when we started. DREAM is an acronym for the Development, Relief, and Education for Alien Minors. And I want to reiterate again, we're talking about children. that for whatever reason have been brought over through no fault of their own. I'm not saying that their parents are at fault, but I just want you to keep in mind that these are children that have no control over what's happened to them and how they've got here. In 2006, there was a bipartisan, which means it was not Republican, it was not Democratic, there was both for and against on both sides. Legislation that was brought up in Congress to hopefully encourage the U.S. to allow undocumented immigrants to the right to go to college and the right to federal financial aid. We are still trying to get that law enacted. It was reintroduced in 2009 and it was reintroduced again in 2011. There have been some measures made towards helping a lot of the Latino population or the undocumented immigrant population in general. And Sir Catherine's going to tell you a little bit about those measures.
You may wonder where we are with legislation. We haven't gotten very far. There's only 11 states that have passed laws that provide undocumented students with the right to education. They are California, Illinois, Kansas, Maryland, Nebraska, New Mexico, New York, Texas, Utah, Washington, and Wisconsin. And there are 3 laws that require undocumented students to abide by. And they are to attend school for a certain number of years in the state, graduate from high school in the state, and they have to sign an affidavit stating that they will apply to legalize as soon as they enroll.
One of the things that we wanted to point out is that this is a little bit different than what the DREAM Act is trying to enact. They are helping the undocumented students, but what this is telling you is that they're giving them in-state tuition, so that helps break up the burden a little bit. But I don't know about y'all, but without some kind of financial aid, I wouldn't be here. So there's still that issue of that financial need and being able to pay for college. So even though a lot of these states have passed that, they give them in-state tuition and let those particular students in the schools, there's a matter of trying to find the money to get there. Why is this important for Georgia? We have a lot of agriculture around here. We draw a lot of migrant farm workers. Those farm workers have families. And we have children here that are being affected by the policies. They're getting out of high school. Some of them are valedictorians, some of them are honor students, some of them are very involved. They're great moral character. And they deserve a right to have the same kind of education that we do. These 2 particular children are from Lowndes County. And these children are going to grow up and need the same opportunities that we do. What's going to happen is if we don't sooner or later give these opportunities to the undocumented children, we're going to continue this cycle of having most of the Latinos in a lower income bracket. We don't want that. We want fairness. We want everybody to have an equal opportunity. So, this is really, really, really close to our heart to encourage you to talk to your friends, to get out, to say things to other people, and let people know that, this isn't somebody in the border in Texas, or this isn't in California. These kids are in Lowndes County.
Then you may wonder, what can you do? This bottom photo here is an actual march that happened in Atlanta this past July. Bobby's good friend, Erin Hurley, had the opportunity to go. She took this picture. So it can be done. We can do something about this.
One other thing that we have done a couple of weeks ago, how many of you knew that Governor Deal, the governor of Georgia, was on campus? We did. There were a good group of students that somehow were secretly given a meeting with him that nobody else knew about. So we made a lot of phone calls. We made a lot of emails to the president, the vice president, to the dean, saying, hey, how can we get in and talk to Governor Deal? We were ignored, so we went right down here to where the food court is, where the governor was, and we staged a little protest and went in and took his media opportunity and asked him some questions. You may not be familiar with Nathan Dill, but one thing I do want you to know about him is that he elected and appointed a known hate group leader to our Immigration Review Board, and we have to stop policies like that. We have to stop corruption like that in our government. We need to weed him out of office, if you ask my opinion. We don't need hate group members on our immigration board. So those are some of the things that we've done. We have also, go ahead.
We also went on to change.org. It was part of the homework that I found Dream Act, and there's already 26,000 something people who signed a petition for the Dream Act, and we have some information here for you to do as well. Also, you can call 1-800-GEORGIA and talk to a Georgia State representative about the issue of the Dream Act, and voice your opinion. That's the biggest thing, is to get with your friends and relatives and just show and tell them the importance of the Dream Act, and that you support it.
There was several videos, and we want to show you one of a rally of students. And before we show this, to let you know that the University of Georgia has done rallies. And if any of you are interested in starting a rally, we certainly could utilize our skills and help if anybody's interested in having a local rally. We're going to show you this last video, and then we'll wrap up.
This one's not a UGA, but one has been
The Dream Act is opportunity, it's education, and just having education is power. And being able to have power, that means being able to succeed and being able to pass the night on to other people who are deserving of it.
Let those who are out there hear us, and we will not be quiet. We will see change no matter how hard we try. So please, whoever's out there, find out what the Dream Act is. It's a good thing. We are educators, we are doctors, and we will succeed.
Well, I think that everybody deserves a chance, and if they could be able to listen to us and to just, like, they have rights, we have rights too.
The last thought we just want to leave you with is education, not deportation.